So we've had a little bit of time since patch 0.9.0 for the meta to kind of settle itself out a bit. So I wanted to give an overview of kind of like where the meta's sitting, kind of give like a state of the meta right now. All of these decks are based off of Mobalytics. They came out with their meta tier list. I'll have a link down below for you to check it out to show the full tier list, all of the decks that they mentioned. And they worked with Swim on these, good old Swimothy, for the information in the deck list. So I'm going to go over the top 5 dominant decks that you can expect to see right now in the meta, and kind of go over the deck list for you a bit. So let's get into it. So in the number 5 spot, I want to highlight the Ezreal control deck. So this is a Freljord PNZ control deck that's trying to use Ezreal's leveled up ability to kind of finish out the game very quickly after he's been able to level up. The deck itself is fairly straightforward as far as the list is concerned. It's not super crazy. This is the list that's using the Elnuks. What started out as a meme with Elnuks has kind of solidified itself as a legitimate package to put into decks. So you're using the Troop of Elnuks and the Bull Elnuks to give you some early game pressure to help protect the board. And they're really good when they go off really well, and you can also just sneak wins out of nowhere. You have a lot of burn as well with Get Excited and Mystic Shot from PNZ. You can hit the Nexus with those. The Ice Veil Archers are really strong. These effects actually do count towards Ezreal's level up ability, so the Frostbite that happens here does help level up him. You're playing full 3 copies of Brittle Steel, Avaros and Sentry to draw. This version's running 1 True Shot Barrage. I've seen people cut this and just play another Chump Wump, but this one right here specifically is using this here. I kind of like 3 Chump Wumps as well, so you can kind of go either way. So the Chump Wumps, they give you your Mushroom Cloud, Burst Speed, and you can use the Burst Speed spells to kill your opponent with Ezreal before they can respond. Static Shock is insanely strong right now. Some of the decks that we'll talk about a little later have a lot of followers that die to this, but it also draws you a card. Drawing cards is very good. 2 Progress Day, because drawing cards is very good. 3 Harsh Winds, they keep you alive, and it's a pretty standard deck. So the goal of the deck is stay alive, stall, and then once you have Ezreal leveled up, play him, and hopefully kill your opponent with all of your burst spells before they can do anything, and make them uninstall the game. All right, and in the number 4 spot, we have the Karma Heimerdinger control deck. Heimerdinger control decks have been around for a while, and this is a kind of newer version of it that's using Karma as well. Karma herself is just another win con in the deck and is very powerful. So your main things that you're wanting to do with this deck, Heimerdinger will allow you to stall forever, and the deck can generate an insane amount of value. The Kinkou Pickpockets are super powerful. If you can land one of these and it gets you an extra spell or 2, it's so strong. Being able to just get any spells at all, it doesn't even matter what they are generally, gives you so much Heimerdinger value that it's insane. And also, this is one of those followers that's just a must-kill unit. So when he's out on the field, your opponent has to deal with it. And if they don't, they're probably going to lose the game. Another interesting card is the Solitary Monk. It is a 4/3 elusive. It can put on insane amounts of power, but it's also strong. Like, being able to use the ability for it to recall other allies is strong. Being able to bounce back things like Shadow Assassin is awesome, and she's just very powerful on her own. She puts on a ton of pressure and has to be dealt with as well. You're running the full removal suite from PNZ, 3 Thermogenic Beams, Mystic Shots, Get Excited. You're also running a full 3 copies of Twin Disciplines. This card is very strong, keeps your followers and champs alive, and also gets you elusive turrets from Heimerdinger, which is very powerful. Heimerdinger can just win you the game on his own. If he stays around a while, he can generate infinite amounts of chump blockers. He turns into Progress Day, which is really good. And I mean, just being able to get the elusive turrets from all your 3-cost spells, these go a long way. They can block other elusives, which is powerful, but also if they don't have any elusives on their own, you're probably gonna win. This version's running the Spirit's Refuge. I've seen different versions of this deck that use other versions of Lifesteal. With the hit to Kinkou Lifeblade, this is a more efficient way to heal in this deck. It's also at burst speed, which makes it a good combat trick, keeps something alive, and also gives it Lifesteal. Being able to give one of your big turrets Barrier and Lifesteal is super strong, and also just being able to keep things alive. Like if you need to put this on Heimerdinger to protect him from like a Mystic Shot or something, you can, and burst speed is very very powerful. This version is running a full 3 copies of Deny. I like 3 copies of Deny. A lot of Ionia decks right now are running 2 copies, and a lot of times they just don't expect the 3rd Deny. So Deny is still very powerful, a little more balanced at 4 mana now, but still very strong and not to be slept on. Also, Karma herself, just getting you extra spells early on is strong, but also when she levels up, a lot of your things just get insane. Things like Twin Disciplines, and Get Excited, Mystic Shot, all of your burn, you can just win. And that's another reason you're running the health potions in this. Being able to get a couple copies of this with Karma is super, super awesome. So great control deck. Heimerdinger is awesome, and you can't really go wrong with this deck. In the number 3 spot, we have the Spooky Karma control deck. This is probably my current favorite deck, and it is an absolute blast to play. So it is a Shadow Isles control deck, but you're making use of Karma's ability when she levels up to double cast spells to just completely close out the game and win pretty much on the spot. So a couple interesting things with this deck is you're making use of Deathmark with the ephemeral abilities of Darkwater Scourge and the Mark of the Isles. So Darkwater Scourge, 3 mana, 5/5 with ephemeral and lifesteal. This dude is very, very strong, and he's even better when you can get rid of ephemeral. So when you have 6 mana, you can play this guy and then play Deathmark to remove his ephemeral, put it on something else, and it's a very, very awesome way to remove a troublesome champion or follower, which is awesome. This is running also Vile Feasts, full 3 copies. You have full 3 copies of Mark of the Isles. You can use this on offense or defense. Being able to give something ephemeral and then death mark it is super powerful, but also just double casting this with Karma, giving something 1 mana, giving something +6/+6 is absurd. So you have these, you're using the Emerald Awakeners to stall the game, keep you alive a bit. They also are very large threats at the end of the game as well, so these are good early and late. Shadow Assassins to draw, but also to block other Elusives, because Elusives are strong in the meta right now. This deck's running 2 Denies, full 3 Grasps, Withering Whale, it's running 3 copies. Whale is super powerful right now. There's a lot of barrier decks going around right now, but there's also a lot of Elusive decks and a lot of Fearsome decks, so this helps you a lot. It's just super strong. But then the end of this game, you have Rekindlers to bring back your Karmas, because that's the only champion you have. You're running 2 Ruinations. It is a very grindy, slow control deck. Being able to clear the board is amazing, but what makes it even better is you're running 2 of the Harrowing. This card is a complete blowout. When you play it, you're usually going to win the game. It gives you the 6 strongest units that died. They have Ephemeral, which is whatever, because you're getting giant things like a bunch of Hecarims and Karmas, and you swing in and win. This card is very powerful. And now with the Deny nerf, you're starting to see more of decks that use this kind of coming up into the meta, and it's really cool to see something like this as a win con, which is awesome. Other than that, it plays like a Shadow Isles control deck, pretty straightforward if you're used to the archetype, and it's very fun. This is probably my favorite deck right now. I've been having an absolute blast with it. Highly recommend you trying it out. All right. Now we're up to the top 2, and in the number 2 spot is the Fearsome Rally deck. Everyone knows right now that Hecarim is a very, very powerful champion, and this deck utilizes him insanely well. So you have Hecarim in the deck, and you're also using the Relentless Pursuit to rally and attack and win when you shouldn't be able to win. This is one of those cards that if your opponent is not expecting it or don't play around it, you just win on the spot. Attacking when you're not supposed to attack is very powerful. This spell is fast, and you put on so much pressure early on that your opponent's life total is usually pretty taxed by the time you play it. It's an aggressive fearsome deck, so you're running the Arachnoid Horrors, you're running Elise, you're running the Mistwraiths, you're running the Frenzied Skitterers, you're running the Vanguard Redeemer. This card is so powerful in this deck. It's always drawing you cards. You have the Wraith Callers as well, 1 Radiant Guardian, 2 Rekindlers, of course, and then if you need to get late into the game, you also get to run the Harrowing. Just like the Spooky Karma deck, this is another thing where sometimes you're just out of stuff to do, and if you draw this, you can just usually win the game. It's super powerful. With the Ionia package getting a little weaker, the Demacia package is quite strong in this deck. Being able to get the Pursuits, the Redeemers, the Radiant Guardian, and you're running one of these. It's a good combat trick. I've seen a couple versions of this that use 2 of these, some that use none. Kind of personal preference on that. I think one's fine. A couple Black Spears. I also don't like running 3 of these. 2 is usually pretty good because you are trying to be fairly aggressive. And Mark of the Isles because it is a very fair card. Deck is super powerful, very aggressive, and it can play very aggressive, but it also has mid-range capabilities because you have things like Hecarim and all the Mistrace and Rate Callers. Fearsome is still very strong, not to be slept on, and this is also a good deck to climb with because it's fast. Being able to climb with a very efficient aggressive deck can get you those ranks faster if that's what you're looking for, and this deck can win you a lot of games. And the number 1 deck right now on the current state of the meta is the Kinkou Elusives deck. Turns out Elusives are still very, very strong. Not being able to get blocked, getting extra damage in is nuts. So you have the Kinkou Wayfinder with Allegiance, summon 2 1-cost units from your deck, and the 1-cost you're running are the Navari Blade Scouts and the Omen Hawk. Omen Hawk is very, very, very powerful. In this deck, it works insanely well because getting your elusives +1/+1 is awesome. This used to be where the Inspiring Mentor used to be, but now since he had the nerf to the Inspiring Mentor, people are using the Omen Hawk in the same way. And if you get to play these for free off of your Kinkou Wayfinder, it's very awesome. It's still running the Life Blades because they're still strong. This version's dropped down to 1 deny. You still want to have the ability to have deny in the deck. You don't want a ton of it because it does cost 4 and you are being very aggressive. This is a very, very aggressive deck where you can win the game incredibly fast. That's why the only champion you're running is Zed, because he is a great aggressive champion. Other interesting things is you're running the Jeweled Protectors. These got a recent buff, and at 4/4 versus the 3/3 it used to be, it's actually pretty good. Making one of your elusive dudes +3/+3 is very strong, as it turns out. You're also running as another finisher, the Windfarer Hatchling. This is another card that never saw play before 0.9.0 that I ever saw. But it's a 4/2 elusive that also gives all your other allies +2/+2 when he's summoned, and that's just very strong. The extra 2 health to attack on a full board, really good. Will of Ionia, great card. It can stall out the game, can get troublesome blockers out of the way. Full 3 copies of Twin Disciplines. This is one of my favorite cards. It's just got so much flexibility, and because you're wanting to run the Allegiance card and you always want the Kinkou Wayfinder to hit, you're running 34 Ionia cards and only 6 Freljord cards. The only 6 you're running the Elixir of Iron because it's such a good combat trick. There's also a lot of Piltover and Zon decks right now, and being able to protect your elusive threats, very good. It's at burst speed 2. It cannot be stopped. This deck is very resilient against deny. So if other people are using deny, you don't have a lot of spells that they can interact with, other than Will of Ionia and your own deny. Very good aggressive deck. It's super, super fast, which is another reason that it's great to climb with. And if decks don't have a way to deal with elusive, you just win. It's very strong and not to be slept on. So if you're looking for a very good aggro deck, this is definitely one that you should be trying out. And then kind of another honorable mention I wanted to show you is the Teemo burn deck. This is another insanely fast deck. You can kill people very quickly. It's using Teemo as a very strong 1-drop, and you're also using Jinx to refill your hand. The whole deck is as aggressive as you can be. Rearguard, Saboteur, Precious Pet, Arena, Battlecaster. Now that this guy got the buff to have the 2 health instead of 1 health, this card's actually pretty strong, especially when you're playing things like Used Cask Salesman. It makes the 2 0/1s, but if they have 1 attack, that's even better. This deck is quite powerful, super fast, and also it's pretty inexpensive to build, which makes it a great choice as well. But this deck is very powerful. I'm sure if you're playing on the ladder at all, you've seen it, but definitely just another choice to think about, and that's why it gets my honorable mention. So those are some of the top 5 best decks in the current meta, as far as where they're positioned on exactly today's date. So if you're watching this 3 months from now, it's probably gonna be a little different, but right now they're very strong. You can't go wrong with any of those decks. You have good control, good aggro, and I'd say it's actually a fairly healthy meta right now. Whenever you can have S tier control and aggro decks. I think it's very good. Anyways, I hope you like this. Again, in the description, there's a link to the Mobalytics page where you can kind of see all the decks for yourself, a little write-up about them. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, you stay saucy. Blam! Brad sucks. Oh, I love that song. I love Brad Sucks. Making me nervous. I think I have this in my playlist actually.
Return to us.
Where can I find a full-bodied ring?
Okay, so here's where we go. $54. Sick. We have Mark of the Isles on one of these. Sick. Yes! Thank you so much for watching my video. If you like what you saw, it would mean a ton if you would hit that subscribe button, hit the little bell notification to be notified when I post some videos, share this with your friends, all that kind of stuff. You're amazing. I love you. And until next time, you stay saucy.